Augusta Transportation Authority Administration and Projects Committee meeting. I am Julie Pierce, the chair of the committee. I want to call the meeting to order and indicate for the record that all committee members are present. The first item on this morning's agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to comment on any item covered by this committee but not on today's agenda. Is there anyone wishing to comment? Seeing no one come forward, we will close the public comment period and go to the approval of the minutes. Any corrections, additions, or a motion?
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by Arnrich. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries unanimously. The next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. These are considered to be routine items. Anyone wish to pull any items for further clarification or a motion?
So
Motion by Arnrich, second by Geringer. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. On to our regular agenda items. The first thing on our docket this morning is the legislative update. I see Mark Watts is here. I'll let Lindsay Willis introduce the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'll just give you a brief federal update before Mark tells you all the news out of Sacramento. I'm sure we'll have more to share at the next meeting because we are actually taking our annual advocacy trip to Washington, D.C. next week to meet with our delegation and some other committees and get an update on what's happening. But just really high level, the House Committee on Transportation Infrastructure has released their framework for the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill. There are a lot of elements in here that align with priorities that CCTA has been looking at, such as electric vehicle infrastructure. So I think that they're headed in the right direction. What they have not yet really released is how they're going to pay for all of the stuff that they're proposing. So I'm hoping that we'll learn a little more about that next week. But we have been sharing our priorities, and our advocates in Washington, D.C. have been trying to make sure that things that are important to CCTA are top of mind for some of the folks drafting the bill. And I think that ultimately, if it moves forward, there should be some stuff in there that's beneficial to our agency. So that was really my very high level update in the moment. Randy, did you want to add anything? Or? Oh, okay. Well, then I'll turn it over to Mark, and maybe he can talk a little louder than me for the state update.
Well, thank you. And it's always a challenge for me to speak loudly because I have a soft voice, but I'll carry a big oh, no, that's the wrong comment. Thank you for having me here today. Briefly, I thought I'd cover a couple of things of interest. I think the CTC is going through some changes. There had been 2 governor's appointees made during the fall, one of which was withdrew recently. So there is a vacancy at this point, but there are also 2 other positions from highly regarded commissioners whose terms expired February 1st, and they are able to continue in their position for about a month and a half under the law. There's quite a big effort underway to support the retention of those 2 members, and that would be Commissioner Dunn from Orange County and Commissioner von Koneinenberg from the Central Valley. So I think I got the name right, but you never know. And so it's an interesting time. The executive director has departed. That was Susan Branson, and the commission did announce their selection of the chief deputy to replace her, and that's Mitch Wise. So that's a bit of continuity, which I think we're going to be grateful for because we know his attitudes and his preferences, so we'll be able to work with him from day one. And finally, I would just point out with the 1 vacancy that we have and the potential 2, depending on what happens, there is a strong rumor that at least 1 labor representative is in line to take a slot and be appointed by the governor. So lots of potential changes for the commission, and then it'll settle down for a year until the next group would have their terms expire. Moving on, I did cover the state budget briefly last time I was here, but there's a couple points I just want to highlight. and get into a new piece of the budget I want to bring to your attention. So first off, I think the top line takeaway was very pleasant for the transportation world. Unlike the last 2 years where we were fighting to protect local streets and roads funds from being redirected as a penalty in the housing arena, nothing is proposed this year in the budget. So I think that was a good start for the year. In addition, the SB1 revenues, as well as the rest of the revenues, reflects an increase that actually reflects some of the aspects of SB1. And so we're going to see the SB1 portion increase by about $400 million in the budget year. So that's welcome news. And now to the new material. In the governor's budget, there was reference to a climate budget and did have a reference to a climate bond. As of late last week, the trailer bill language related to the climate resiliency bond was released. We've had a chance to go through that. It's approximately $4 billion as proposed by the governor. It's probably 60 to 65% of it dedicated to protecting our water infrastructure. But there's some more flexible with the remainder of the money. The only amount I could find that would be directly applicable to local roads or state highways is a $50 million category for pilot programs, but it's a pretty broad range of potential pilots. It would include airports, transit, local roads, ports, and state highways. So that's a lot of infrastructure going to be chasing a small amount of money. I have a strong belief that as that bill or that concept moves through the legislature, they're going to try to put it on the November ballot, that we'll see a lot of potential increases in the overall amount and maybe some more categories. So that's something to pay attention to. And I won't say in contrast, but following the lead of Senator Allen's bill, SB 45, was a $5 billion climate resiliency bond. It has cleared the Senate under the 2-year bill requirement. It is in the Assembly. And as a result of having that measure as well as the governor's proposal on the table formally now, both caucuses or both houses are putting together working groups to start looking at where the similarities and where some of the holes are between the two bond acts as you look at them in a holistic sense. So as I indicated, there will be a lot of work done between now and the summertime when you have to qualify for the ballot, even legislatively. Beyond that, the legislation I want to draw to your attention, there's not been much public discussion or publicly disclosed information about Senator Bell's mega bill, mega project bill. It's still being worked on by the legislative staff, and they're keeping a very, very tight grip on the information right now. In addition, this past week, Assemblymember Chu introduced AB 2053, which is an intent bill as it stands, but it's an intent that's in line with a change that the MTC made to their ledge program in January compared to December that called on support for seamless transit throughout the state or throughout the region. And so the bill, as an intent bill right now, will be fleshed out before its first hearing. But essentially, it's in line with with what MTC sketched out in its January agenda. Finally, I just want to point out, and you're probably well aware of this, but this California Transit Association was very deeply involved for the last, I want to say, 7 or 8 months on behalf of the two chairs of the two committees, taking a fresh look at the Transportation Development Act, TDA, which is a combination of the quarter-cent LTF funds, local transportation fund, transit source, as well as state transit assistance funds and the formulas. And the basic part of the TDA program has been in place since 1971. So it was thought it was a good time to take a fresh look at that. Your local executive, Rick Ramsier, was the lead on the group to review it. They've reported it out. There had been some concerns that they may have taken away some planning money from RTPAs and others. That does not seem to be the case at this point in time as we've reviewed their material. So hats off to Mr. Rams here for steering that through, and frankly to the CTA for wrangling through a tough job. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mark. Any additions or questions of Mark on what's going on? It's gearing up to be a busy spring. Yeah. Randy?
So Lindsay and I went to Sacramento, and thank you, Mark, for setting up the meetings. We met with our delegation. We didn't make it to Assemblymember Wicks's office nor Senator Skinner's office, but we passed out our faster draft proposal, the things that we want out of the drafter, or the faster, if it ever goes. Manny Leon said that they're starting to re-energize that effort again here in a week or two, and so be prepared for that. The other thing is we got a call from Assemblymember Wick's office about bus on shoulders. So she really likes this idea of putting buses on shoulders on Interstate 80. And as you know, we have a proposal on Innovate 680 to do it on Interstate 680, and we're trying to do that administratively. And so she is talking now about legislation. So Mark, you might want to maybe check in with her office to see what they need.
I absolutely will, and I'll just remind myself out loud here that Senator Bell is intending to carry a bill, and it's a plus and a minus. The plus side of it is it would authorize bus on shoulder, but it limits the applicability to 8 projects as conceived initially, 4 in Southern California and 4 in Northern California. And with the high degree of interest shown in this region, we want to get the Innovate 680, maybe even Route 4, and maybe even 80 kind of grandfathered in before they have to go apply under that bill. And if not, then expand the amount or just make it wide open. So we've got a lot of work to do on bus on shoulder, and that's a good thing, but it's also a challenge.
Correct. Yeah. Just an update that I will throw in here because it kind of fits under the legislation as part of the whole faster picture. At the workshop that ABAG and MTC had last week together, the polling firm brought to us the information about a housing bill, housing bond versus transportation tax in the Bay Area, separately or together for November. And housing consistently stays over the 2/3 for a housing bond, a GO bond. When combined with a faster type measure, it dips very strongly down to in the 50s. And when transportation alone is on there, it's still below 2/3 as a 1-cent sales tax is what they tested. So there's a good bit of discussion going on now regionally about what's the best way to go, because it's pretty clear so far that together they cannot possibly both pass. And as separate measures on the same ballot, the only one that stands a chance is housing, but with the transportation one there too, even that dips. Housing alone would pass, according to polling a couple of weeks ago. So it'll be interesting to watch and see what sort of the movers and shakers decide they want to do going forward. And the discussions are on now between ABAG and MTC, assuming that it's a go for one or both until it's determined it's not. So the preparation is underway on how to manage that, looking particularly at the housing side of it. The transportation side is kind of already written. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to follow and see where this goes. Right now, it doesn't look strong in the polling for a faster measure, especially since we don't know what it would look like. And that's pretty iffy. The general public seems to think housing is a bigger crisis than transportation is, which may bode well or not for us locally. So anyway, just an update there. Any other comments or questions on legislation? If not, thank you, Mark. Appreciate your trip down here. At least it's a bright sunny day for the trip back, right? Okay, thank you. The next item, item 10, State Route 4 Design Alternative Assessment, and this one goes to Stephanie.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Yes, this is an action item related to a development of a Design Alternative Assessment, or DAA, for State Route 4. MTC is currently developing a 15-year express lane strategic plan for the Bay Area, and to align with that effort, the authority is partnering with MTC to develop a DAA for State Route 4, just west of Interstate 680 and Hillcrest Avenue. The goal of the DAA is to study a range of managed lanes options to address congestion on Highway 4 and come up with a set of near-term and mid-term alternative or project concepts that are feasible for project delivery. The project concepts may include, but not limited to, converting general purpose lane and or HOV lane to express lanes, shoulder running lane for buses and HOV, and express bus operations. Developing feasible concepts with conceptual design and cost estimate will better position the authority for future funding opportunities, such as the Corridor Express Lane program under RM3. Along with this DAA, the authority is also beginning the East County Infrastructure Investment Study and the East County Integrated Transit Study. So along with the DAA, these three studies will help form a vision for State Route 4, just like what we've been doing with Innovate 680. Staff reviewed the on-call list that was approved by the Authority Board back in September 2018 and determined that Mark Thomas will be the most suitable firm to do this DAA. They have past project experience on Highway 4, and they're also currently working on the State Route 4 Operational Improvement Project. So with the depth of knowledge of this corridor, we thought that Mark Thomas will be best to develop this DAA. The DAA will approximately be 9 months in duration, continuing with our goal of leveraging Measure J money for our projects. The cost of the DAA will be shared equally with MTC's BATA funds, or Bay Area Toll Authority, and the Measure J planning funds, both contributing $150,000. So this morning, we're seeking your authorization for the board chair to execute task order number 2 under agreement number 499 with Mark Thomas and Company in the amount not to exceed $250,000, and to approve a contingency of $50,000 for a total task order value of $300,000. Sasha Densky is here today, also for Mark Thomas. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Any questions? Newell?
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. The world we're living in today with traffic at the volumes, and given all the improvements we have, we are where we are right now. Does this, in a face-forward kind of approach, actually look at the delay that doing a managed lane would cause? Because MTC before said, we're not looking at that. We've already made a decision. We need to do this. We're going to put these lanes in. And it will work out. But that sort of was based on the theory that, we're going to socially change people, we're going to get more people in this other lane. But in fact, in many cases, they're causing delays. So is that something that is mandatory to be looked at? That if we actually take one of the lanes out, convert it to a toll lane or a HOV lane from point to point, are we seriously going to look at, does this actually improve traffic? And what's the basis of evidence that it will improve traffic? And I'm looking at, when we changed we went to, 12, 13-hour, 14-hour period where it is, and there's times where that lane is totally empty and we're backed up in the other lanes. And the theory that, I'll just buy my way into it, that's not helping traffic. I mean, that delay causes greater greenhouse gases. Do we look at it, or is there an inherent bias based on MTC's involvement?
I think that's something we'll definitely look at with the study. And one of the alternatives on State Route 4 Operational Improvement Project also includes a managed lane. So in total, I think we will be looking at that more closely.
Okay.
I know that's the experience on 680. It appears, I drive that corridor
Sure.
as well. So yes, there are times.
Number one question people
Yeah.
ask us, great, now it takes me longer to get work that this lane is in. So, we can't, and obviously there are other things we're looking at, but I would just like to have that because particularly for our friends that are out there, when they start getting those calls, why'd you do this? It's taking me longer to get to work. We need to be able to honestly address that. And even though there's the master plan that, oh, this is going to work, you know, I think the world is changing in that. And I get it. We're still working on that. But by the time we implement all that, there's going to be better solutions out there that are actually going to move people, make it safer. Also looking, what's the accident rate? Has the accident rate on 680, for example, increased? We eliminated with auxiliary lanes. We dropped dramatically. One of the worst areas in 680 for accidents was between Crow Canyon and Sycamore. We almost virtually eliminated accidents there with auxiliary lanes. Where are we at now with the lanes? So anyway, if we can look at all those things,
Yeah,
this is to be, you know, as upfront as we can. Thank you.
Those are valid points, and for sure we'll be looking at it in our studies.
Bob?
Yes, and in fact, this was brought up, and my vague memory bank. This was brought up, and I read about this in one of the main papers of, is traffic going to slow down and get worse versus get better? So this has already been brought up in the public eye. So you might, I was hoping somebody else in here would remember that, but this has been pretty recent that this question came up as an editorial type deal. So it's out there.
Thank you.
Okay, and this study will be back
So
when?
it will take about 9 months to complete. So plus minus within the year, we'll come back with something.
Okay, so the end of the year, we'll see the results of
Yeah.
this study. That'll be good. That'll be good.
I'd move the item then.
All right,
Thank
motion by Arnrich. Second by Butt. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. On to item 11, Innovate 680. And Peter, you have this one.
Yes, good morning, Chair Pierce and APC committee members. We're excited today to bring you the first of several of these partnership agreements for our team to work on the Bay Area MOS federal grant application. This is an agreement with Advanced Mobility Group. AMG played a crucial role in helping develop the grant, as you all know, and that you approved the agreement with FHWA last month. And they will continue to play a role. They were approved as a key partner and as part of that federal agreement. So there was anticipation through that agreement of the importance of the role that they will play in the progress. We've listed in the staff report the scope of work and the items that AMG will be working on. It's roughly a $3.5 million contract. We also have listed in the staff report the key staff from AMG. I'll be working day to day with Ray Akawi. He will be the project manager for AMG as we move through this grant application. So based on that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, and we're looking for your approval of agreement number 539.
Great. Thanks, Peter. Questions? Comments? Motion by Taylor? Second by Butt. Any public comment on this? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We are on to commissioner and staff comments. I have no comments other than that I'm headed to DC on Saturday for a week of meetings between the National Association of Regional Councils and CCTA back there, and we're going to be playing in the rain in Washington, D.C., running back and forth to talk to our legislators. So, and hopefully we can learn something. That'll be good. And so I will go to commissioner comments. None?
You're going to bring up
Executive staff comments. Yes, this has been a great headline. So let's hear more.
Commissioners, one thing I wanted to add to the discussion over the express lane, HOV lane is it's part and parcel to an overall strategy. So when you start looking at just one strategy, and if you look at the history of HOV express lanes, just look at the history of HOV lanes. When they take them away, the whole system breaks down. That's been proven. So when you have an HOV lane, it's a single HOV lane. That's probably not the most efficient way to move people. It's probably a 2-lane, side-by-side HOV lane because of the speed differentials. But that's not what causes congestion. What causes congestion is your interchanges where you have weaving. Every time you have a lane drop or you have an interchange where you have people coming on and off, that's where you end up getting a lot of friction. So we have a Innovate 680. It's a multifaceted approach to congestion. It includes ramp metering, adaptive ramp metering, things like that. So I just wanted to add that. The other thing is we just recently, and I've been having to keep myself quiet, Lindsay's been hitting me all the time because I want to say this, but we've been working on this donation of an Ollie shuttle for the high school kids that we're trying to revamp the auto shop, and Pittsburgh High School happened to apply for a grant, and we worked with them on the application of that grant. They got that grant. And then Ollie or Local Motors is going to donate an Ollie shuttle. This is teaching the kids how to deal with the next generation of vehicles. And we did a LinkedIn post. It's for sure in California it's not been done. Probably United States, maybe even in the world. So these kids are going to be part of the next generation of a skill set that they're going to need to work on electric motors because in our county, we're saying 58% zero-emission fleet turnover in this electric motor. You're going to have mechanics that can deal with high voltage, all these other things. And so we're really excited to announce finally that we're part of this program to revamp the auto shop at Pittsburgh High School. So that's a pretty good deal. Thanks.
Any questions? Oh, okay. Tom?
Can you elaborate on a couple of things? This thing says the vehicle is donated by Ollie worth $300,000. So what did CCTA, what was
So we negotiate, Local Motors is part of the next grant that you'll see, the Automated Driving System grant, where we want up to 6 vehicles to move around Rossmore. So Local Motors is a local manufacturer of the same vehicle, a similar vehicle to the Easy Mile shuttle. That's about $250,000. So they're about $250,000 to $300,000. They're handmade basically currently. And so Local Motors agreed, they thought it was a great idea to donate one of the shuttles to Pittsburgh High School so they could take it apart and put it back together and understand how those vehicles of the future are going to operate and what they need to learn in order to maintain.
So CCTA's role is just facilitating all this, right?
Yeah, we actually have, so Pittsburgh High School doesn't have a relationship with Local Motors. We do.
Oh, okay. And I was also curious, I don't want to get into the weeds, but it says Local Motors is the creator of the world's first 3D printed car. Is this vehicle 3D printed, and if so, how did they pull that off?
So they have it's called additive manufacturing. So they have a plant in Arizona and in Knoxville, Tennessee. I've been to the one in Knoxville, Tennessee, and it basically 3D prints the chassis. So if you look at the vehicle on the bottom, you can see layers of they take carbon fiber pellets or some type of fiber pellets, and they melt them, and they have a giant arm that goes, and it really goes around in this pattern, and you can see it layering upon layer of this hot material, and as it cools, it binds together and it creates the chassis. And so they're looking for a location to do another plant. And so in our relationship with Local Motors, we're trying to convince them that they want to do it in Northern California, that Contra Costa County is the place to do it. It's because it creates 50 jobs, or 50? Around 50? About 50. Anyway, it creates about 50 jobs.
A lot of jobs.
A lot of jobs. But the point is this the next generation of how you're going to build things is through 3D printing. And so it's pretty cool if you ever get a chance. We could set that up, and hopefully they'll build a plant here. Then you could really see how that works. They bring in truckloads of these little pellets that they melt, and then this giant arm, they have a gantry crane that then hauls this chassis off, and they build a kit. And so these literally are handmade, and that's not sustainable because in order to lower the cost, you're going to have to do more manufacturing, automated manufacturing, but this 3D printing can help.
Okay, thanks for the detail.
You're welcome.
So are they going to have people from Local Motors helping to train the instructors? I mean, there's got to be a training class somewhere because it's not like regular auto shop teacher knows how to do this.
So the auto shop teacher has to get approved for high voltage training, and then Local Motors has agreed to send technicians in to keep updating the auto program teacher, keep him up to date on how to teach this class.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Terrific. Well, we're innovating all the way around. Bob?
You know what would really strike it up too, and put it in a context, is that towards the, like, have a kid come in when this is kind of halfway done or whatever, have a couple of those kids come in here and just say kind of how it went.
Talk
what
about
did
the
they learn?
program.
Talk about the program. I think that'd be a great PR. And not only that, Brentwood has an auto shop. So, be something really that, I see this going to not just a school now. If this actually takes off and does really well, I mean, we could educate an awful lot of people. And I think that's the whole idea of this. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, Los Medanos has got a really good auto shop program as well through the junior college. It's been the place to go for auto shop for some time.
So they reached out to us, and so if you have ideas where you want to do something with the next generation of technology, have them reach out to Lindsay or myself, and then we will be happy to work with them on connecting the dots, because in this case we're working on an agreement with Local Motors. They wanted to revamp their auto shop. As you know, I love the automobile because I used to work on them as a kid. That's what I did for a living as I went through high school, but at my dad's shop. But we thought, wow, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, this is really cool.
And so we were all in, and it's not in any duty statement that says, hey, you got to go work with auto shops to try to figure out a way of advancing their technology, but we just like doing this.
Yeah.
And you look at the results. People they want to do it in Spanish. They want to talk to kids in Spanish about how this is going to affect their lives. This is a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
But if you have ideas where your school district or somebody, we were just at teachers, you were just.
I was going to say that I think we did an externship day, Peter and I, with some teachers the other day at MCE, and there's like four school districts who've already gotten in line in front of you with ideas they want to pitch us for their
great.
help on.
That's great. Yeah, let's do that. Let's train the next generation so that we can get this moving along. That's awesome. All right. I see that we have no other business, so we are adjourned to our next meeting on Thursday, March 5th. Have a good day, everybody.